Hello. I thought I'd make a casual weekend reading progress video because the book I'm trying to read is frustrating me so much. And have you ever had this experience where you're reading a book and it feels like wading through mud? It is taking so long, it's dreary and arduous work, and every couple of paragraphs I find my vision just drifting off to the wall, and I think, oh, there's a crack there on the wall. What should I have for dinner tonight? Oh, there's a crack on the wall. I guess I should get back to reading this book. And then another couple paragraphs go by. I don't remember much from it. I'm not engaged by it, and my attention just drifts off again. And that's the experience I've been having trying to read Study for Obedience by Sarah Bernstein, which is a quite short novel. It's only 190 pages. I'm only 50 pages into it, but I've been reading those pages for the past few days, and this is all the progress I've made, and I'm finding it really frustrating and dismaying because I started reading this book because at first I thought it sounded interesting. Whoa, I just, some games I had piled up in the background just fell over, sorry. So yeah, I thought the premise sounded interesting of a woman who moves to an unspecified northern territory to move in with her brother to become his housekeeper and work for him in this very passive way. And I like that the book starts with a quote by Paula Rego, which says, "I can turn the tables and do as I want. I can make women stronger. I can make them obedient and murderous at the same time." And I really like Paula Rego's artwork of these figures who seem quite vulnerable in a way, but in the depiction of their bodies seem really powerful, and so I guess the author is inspired by this kind of fictional character to someone who seems very passive and obedient, but who has the potential for violence. And of course, I was motivated to read this book because it's prize nominated, and so I wanted to prioritize it and read it. But I've just been finding it so slow going partly because it's so much in it is unspecific, including the name of the central character, where she goes, the jobs that some people do. It's all left very vague, and that leaves not all that much to grasp onto in terms of connecting with the characters or the place or the story. And of course that's intentional on the part of the author, and so it wouldn't necessarily be a problem, but her character is so passive in this way, and so self-effacing. So she thinks that she is blameworthy, that a lot of people she encounters seem not to like her, and she turns this back on herself and says, "Oh, it's all my fault anyway, I'm sure." And so of course naturally you start to grow suspicious of this, and you're like, well, actually, are you all that blameless? And even if you are very obedient and passive in this way, is there a kind of power in this obedience that you have as the youngest member of the family that's always been made to feel by your family and the people around you, and especially your eldest brother, who's the kind of prince of the family, that you only exist to serve other people. And so in what ways is she powerful herself and exerting her own influence? And I guess that's the question that's supposed to have been teased throughout this narrative, but I'm just finding so much of the detail of it really isn't sinking in and staying with me. So I've through the 50 pages I've read that I've tried to really concentrate on, not very successfully, because I keep getting distracted because of the tone of it just feels so unengaging. Not much of it has stuck with me. And it's funny because I've got to this section 50 pages in where she's talking about how the region she's gone to, she doesn't speak the native language, though she tried to learn it. And she says that I was studious, I was meticulous, for whatever reason, it would not stick. And that feels very much the same with reading this book, that no matter how much I try to read it and it's just not sticking in with me, what she's been discussing. And so I don't really know what's going on in this book. And so I've gone and looked at some reviews of it to try to get some insight into it. There are some people who have read it who've rated it very highly, and though they say they concede that I'm not sure I understood this book, and and some reviewers also concede that they didn't find it enjoyable experience, but some did find it very powerful. I think it's one of those cases where you either get along with the writing style or you don't, or it's a book that you'll want to put work into to understand it more, or you just won't. And I think I'm at the point where I want to put it aside because I'm clearly not gelling with this writing style, and it's one of those books that feels more concept than real content or substance to it. Kind of feel like I'll get to the end of this book, not really remember all that much about it, but think more on the themes of it and maybe draw out some meaning from that rather than what I actually got from the book. Maybe it's exerting a subtle influence in that way, but I don't think it's worth sticking with. Though I kind of admire in a way that the author is doing something different, writing about a character that is not the typical kind of character you would find as a protagonist for a novel. Usually with the main characters of our books, we like them to have some motivation, we like them to have some desire, and this is a character who is the complete opposite of that, who seems so passive, just letting things happen to her. And there are some little tidbits that seem kind of interesting of this almost slightly incestuous suggestions of that one of her duties of being the housekeeper for her eldest brother is to help wash and clothe him, and she expresses how she kind of enjoys this, and so that's slightly intriguing, though very odd and slightly disturbing, obviously. But yeah, there's a slightly intriguing element to that. But just the way she handles this kind of passive character just doesn't make me want to read more about her. And it's interesting because Joyce Carol Oates wrote a novel quite a while ago, not one of her more well-known books, called Do With Me What You Will, which is also about a very passive character of a woman who's a trophy wife. And it's interesting how she explores this type of personality in the narrative, but there's also a lot else going on in this book, whereas in Study for Obedience, it's all about this central character. We're only just following her and so stuck in her perspective as she seems to tell her story, and then she reels back and says, oh no, I'm getting off subject, and so I'll skip to this other thing that I should be talking about, but then she keeps lapsing into these so I'm not sure really the point of that. Obviously it's very intentional on the author's part, but yeah, it's just not working for me. So I think I'm going to put this book down and pick up something else. And of course, maybe I'm thinking about this book more critically than I would if I was just reading the novel on its own outside of a prize context, because of course, as I'm reading along and feeling very frustrated with it, I'm like, really? Is this book better than this book? Really? And so, you know, it could be just the case that the judges of the Booker Prize read both of these books and felt like, no, this is a stronger novel or a more interesting novel to include in the mix of the Booker Prize Longlist. And I don't know if I should be stirring up kind of conspiracy theories, but as I commented responded to a number of comments on my video about the Booker Prize Longlist, that it's also possible that Demon Copperhead wasn't longlisted for the prize because Barbara Kingsolver might not have wanted to have had her book put forward for it, because she has done so much press around this novel and so much promotion of it over the past year. And if she had been longlisted for the Booker Prize, she would have been required to do a lot more press. And so she personally might not have wanted to commit to doing that. And I have absolutely no insight whether this was actually the case, but I just want to put it forward as a possible theory, as so many people are indignant that this hasn't been longlisted for the prize. It could be that Barbara Kingsolver herself might not have wanted to have been put forward for the prize. And there's been definite precedent for this in the past, where I know of some authors that have not wanted their books to be put forward for the prize because of this reason, because of the commitment it would have required of them personally to be involved with the whole process of the Booker Prize. And like there's a case of the Australian author Patrick White in the past, where one of his books was shortlisted for the prize and declared to be so, but then he asked for it to be withdrawn from consideration for being a winner because he thought he had won enough prizes, and that more younger, less well-known authors could have done better with the recognition and attention that the prize would give. And Barbara Kingsolver certainly indicated this too with her listing for this year's Women's Prize for fiction. And even though she won it, she very humbly said in her speech, there's no one way of saying that any book is the best book on any given list of books that a small group of judges will make. So yeah, there are a number of factors of why this might not have been longlisted for this year's prize, including the possibility that the judges just didn't think it was as strong as the other books. But as I said, I reading both these books now, I find it very questionable and odd that this book would have been listed, rather than this would, and many other books that I've read this year that I thought would probably be more worthy of prize attention than this book. So yeah, I'm gonna give up on this book, go and read something else that might be prize nominated, but probably not. I'll probably pick a book to read that is entirely outside a prize context that I just want to read and enjoy. But I would love to know if you have read this book, and if you agree with me, if you also didn't get all that much out of it or decided to DNF it, or if you have read this book and did really love it. I would love to know your thoughts on it, why you thought it was so interesting, why you connected with it. This could be just totally my personal reading tastes that I just didn't get on with this book, but I know some other people have felt this way as well. Yeah, it'd be really interesting to hear, because I love hearing other readers' points of view, and especially on books that I didn't enjoy. And I know in the past sometimes with books, because it can be so rare that I'll speak negatively about a book, that will intrigue some readers to be like, oh, I want to go read that and see if I agree with you and don't like the book as much, or maybe I will actually like it. I know that because I have a kind of reputation of like, oh, Eric likes everything, but I can assure you that I don't like everything. And so this is just an example of that, and my ramblings on the weekend about what I've been reading lately. But I'd love to know what you're reading this weekend, and I hope it's good, and I hope you have a good weekend, and I'll speak to you again soon. Bye-bye.